Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome.
We start on page 1, singing Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain. Bring peace to this beautiful Shabbat.
Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo. Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to everyone who's joining us in the sanctuary this evening. It's great to see you all. Welcome to those of you who are joining us from home. It's so good to have you connect with us, for us to be together in this way as a Kehillah Kedoshah, as a holy community. It's been a great week in some ways. We have had our first week of hosting a family promise family.
Yay.
And it was absolutely delightful. A wonderful family with 3 children, so grateful to be in the program, such a pleasure to be with, and many, many temple volunteers bringing food, driving the van, hosting the family, staying overnight, everybody doing their part and giving a very warm welcome to this family as they do the program and eventually, God willing, get back up on their feet, get into independent living once again with a roof over their head and a job, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And thank you so much to many of you seated with us tonight that have been helping us out. And we always need more volunteers. So.
And it's been an eventful week in the news, as it is every week, it seems.
Yes.
And the one thing that's really sticking on my mind is an image that has a little narrative that goes with it. As many of you know, President Biden right now is in Saudi Arabia after visiting for 4 days the modern state of Israel. And one of the very most powerful images and experiences, I'm sure, of that visit is him at Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial and Museum. He went there to relight the torch and to participate in a ceremony. And there he is in this photograph that many of you might have seen in the news, and he's flanked by both Israeli and American officials. And standing with him is Rabbi Israel Lau, who is a survivor of Birkenau. And next to him on one side is President Isaac Herzog, who is a child of survivors, and Benny Gantz, Israel's defense minister, who's a child of survivors, and Yair Lapid, the new prime minister of Israel, who is the son of survivors, and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, whose stepfather is a survivor of the Holocaust. And it just reminds us that the Holocaust is not just something fading into history. It's very much alive and with us through the testimonies of survivors, through that important connection. And it's so important when an American president visits Israel that he makes that very significant... Or she, yeah. God willing, in the future, visit to Yad Vashem to remind the world as a representative of the United States. Not only did we play a role in bringing World War II to an end, but we stand up to nations all around the world who don't share the values of freedom and the dignity of life for every human being. It's alive and well, that struggle today in, well, just think about it, Ukraine and in other places of the world where freedom is being threatened. So it's a very significant moment. Oh, and I should mention, well, President Biden is not the child or the grandchild of survivors, but 2 of his children are married to Jews. He has 3 Jewish grandchildren. Did you know that? So it's very close. It's very personal to him as well. And with that, why don't we take a moment to greet one another, left and right, in front and behind, say Shabbat Shalom. You at home, why don't you send a chat wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom if you haven't already. And let's continue on page 6 with Lecha Dodi.
Dodi lirakala yanana 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 Shabbat likavela Lecha Dodi lirakala yanana
page 8 with the lighting of the candles for Shabbat. We hope that you'll light candles with us at home, and we invite up onto the bima for the honor of lighting the candles this evening, Jonathan Jacoby, President of the Board of Family Promise.
And Shepping Nachas, as we say.
And an all-around mensch. We always have strength for doing a mitzvah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Our service continues now on page 9. We invite you to rise either physically or in your heart as we join together in the call to worship the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Let
Page
us
10.
read together on the middle of page 10. Love Adonai, your God, with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at home and at work. Whether you are tired or you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I
Adonai your God.
I know it's not time for Matovu, it's time for Michamocha. But those words, Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel, come from the morning prayer service and happen to actually originate in our Torah portion this Shabbat called Balak. And those words are words that are spoken by a sorcerer, a soothsayer, a diviner, someone who casts spells for a living, named Balaam, who is commissioned by Balak, the king of Moab, to go and curse the Israelites who are passing through his kingdom. He's worried, he's threatened. He thinks they're going to attack them. So, after a long series of events, Balaam goes up and he looks down from a high place and he sees the encampment of the Israelites with all their tents lined up in neat rows. And he opens his mouth to cast a spell, to say a curse, and what comes out instead is a blessing. Matovu alecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And what's the meaning of this? Well, first of all, he just couldn't curse them because something about that experience took that curse and changed it into a blessing. But the tents, your good tents, what does that mean? I mean, was it like a Coleman tent, a good tent? A good sturdy tent? I don't think so. Or, oh, good tent, you're so good. Tents are inanimate objects, right? They can't do goodness. So what's the meaning of how good are your tents? Well, the rabbis comment, their idea is that all the entrances to all the tents were positioned so that none were facing somebody else's entrance. They were all positioned in a different direction to protect the privacy and the dignity of the neighbor next door. And it's for that reason that a blessing instead comes out. And the comment is not about the tent, but about the character of the Jewish people, that they have sensitivity and care for their neighbor, that they only speak words of blessing, or try anyway, that is our value, and that this is our heritage. And that's a good lesson for all of us, especially in this age where privacy is really threatened in so many ways. We need to sometimes position our tent or to put up a careful wall, or just to be sensitive to not invade our neighbor's privacy, to uphold the vision of godliness in every person that we are commanded to see. That's what it means, that their tents were good. Oh, and this ceiling, by the way, is designed to remind us of the top of a tent. It's right in the architecture of our sanctuary. And now we continue not with Matovu, but Michamocha.
Page 11. Spread over us a shelter of peace.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim. Ushmor tzeiteinu, uvoeinu, Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai, Asa Adonai, Et HaShamayim ve'et haaretz hayom hashvi'it Shabbat, Shabbat vayinavad. Ve'ni ulei bnei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ve'ni ulei bnei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Nishamenu bnei Yisrael, et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם.
Our service continues now on the bottom of page 13, and we invite those who are able to rise for the chanting of the Amidah.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi agita ilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imachot, U'mevi geula livnei v'nechem, Lema'an shemo ve'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, B'chayei hakol. Atah rav le'hoshia, Mechakel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim. Tzomech noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman nata lahachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom, yehalelu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. We read together, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael, utfilatam be'ahava tekavel, uthi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha, Baruch atah Adonai, she'odcha levadcha, be'yir'ah na'avod. Be gracious, O Lord our God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. May our worship always be acceptable to you. Modima nachnu lach, she'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, le'olam va'ed, Tzur chayenu, Magen yishenu, Atahu lador vador. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. For a few moments of silent prayer, we pray that everyone, the countries of the world, the people of Ukraine, people who live in other places who are in danger, can find themselves under a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, and that we find that same peace and harmony in our lives, in our families, and in our homes, and in our hearts. Tfilat Halev, the prayer of the heart. Thank you for that beautiful Yehi L'Ratzon, Lindy. Once again, you crack open our hearts. That one reminds me of a lullaby, doesn't it? So soothing and so peaceful. Well, a father and his two children were riding on a train. And the kids were so excited about their trip. Their exuberance was overflowing. And they were jumping up and down on the empty seats, and they were running up and down the aisles. And as you could imagine, the other passengers on the train were not too happy about it. And they were losing their patience with each passing minute. And to make matters even worse, the father was just sitting there, taking it all in. And when the kids looked at him, he would just smile as the kids continued their mischief. And this made the fellow passengers even more upset. As the hour grew late, everybody wanted some peace and quiet, hoping to rest, but the two kids continued with their ruckus. Finally, one passenger couldn't take it anymore, got up from his seat, and he angrily approached the father and, in an accusatory tone, told the father how rude he was for not controlling his wild children and how his approving smiles were just encouraging them. What kind of a lousy father are you for letting your kids get so out of hand? And the other passengers were so happy that someone finally spoke up, and they were about ready to give him a standing ovation. They thought to themselves, that father should be ashamed of himself for not controlling his obnoxious children. But then, the father just paused for a long moment, and he finally said, how do I explain? I'm just thinking. And the man who spoke up said, what do you mean? I don't understand. And as the father continued in a soft voice so his children now at the other end of the train car wouldn't hear, he said, my wife was visiting her mother last night, and while she was there, she was killed suddenly in a car accident. I'm taking my children there now, and I don't know how I'm going to tell them. Hearing this, everyone was shocked and didn't know what to say, and the children, who were still playing, as the father was silent again, but there was a change in the atmosphere on that train. The passengers no longer looked at those children as spoiled brats, but as innocent souls, victims of tragedy who needed their patience and understanding. In their eyes now, the father was no longer an inconsiderate, overly permissive father, but a man in mourning who had just lost his life partner. I found this story in a collection of moral stories meant to illustrate important lessons. The point of this one, of course, is to urge people to not judge others harshly, especially before knowing them or knowing clearly the facts of a situation. Sometimes it's the truth that is shocking. But you don't have to go any farther than the daily news to hear stories, real life stories that are just as shocking, if not more so. Like the first thing I heard on the news yesterday morning when I turned on the TV about the continuing saga in Uvalde. media organizations and social media users were all up in arms over the image pulled from a video posted on the internet. It shows one of the policemen in the school that day glancing at his phone while the shooter just down the hall continues killing children and teachers. And everyone was quick to judge why he was on his phone. Some who watched the video honed in on his lock screen, which had the Marvel Comics vigilante called the Punisher. And they excoriated him for his inaction, some even accusing him of playing a video game. What those irate people didn't know is that this police officer holding the phone, Ruben Reyes, is the husband of Eva Morales, one of the teachers in the school that day, who at that very moment lay dying in her classroom. The two of them were actually on the phone with each other, and she told him that she had been shot, but he was unable to get to her. Other officers, knowing his connection, escorted him from the scene, and they took away his gun. His wife was alive when she was taken out of the classroom, but she died before reaching the hospital. Knowing the facts here, the true facts, not those which were imagined, makes all the difference. Like the grieving father in the train story, this poor police officer was one of the victims of the tragedy. How terrible it is that so many people jump to conclusions accusing him, of all people, of ignoring his duty. For the sin we have committed against you by judging others unfairly. This is one of the al-Chaitz that we recite on Yom Kippur, the confession of sin, which is specifically devoted to this issue of judging others. It's a sin I hope you will agree that we are all guilty of. Over and over again, we judge and we misjudge both the things we hear about in the news and the things we experience ourselves, and sadly and perhaps more importantly, we falsely and we incorrectly judge the people we love and care about deeply. What a sin it is to jump to conclusions, making snap judgments about someone's actions or their character or intentions without really knowing the facts. I suppose that a sermon on the topic of judging others belongs on Yom Kippur, on the day when tradition calls on us to account for our sins. But I was so stricken by that sad story in the news yesterday. And this is such an important topic, not just for once a year on Yom Kippur, but for us to remember every day. And it also comes up in our Torah portion this week in Balak, in that famous story about Balaam, the same guy who tried to curse the Israelites but blessed them instead. It's a different part of the story. Let me set the scene. Balak is riding his donkey on the way to meet King Balak when suddenly the donkey freezes in its tracks and veers off the road. So he beats him. Then he presses Balaam against the rows of a vineyard, and Balaam, in anger, beats the donkey again. Finally, they end up in a narrow place between two walls, and this time the donkey lays down, refusing to move, and Balaam beats him a third time. Then in a very amazing turn of events, even for the Torah, God puts words into the donkey's mouth. What have I done to you to make you beat me 3 times? Says the donkey. And Balaam says, you made a fool of me. If I had a sword, I'd kill you right now. And the donkey says, have I ever done this to you before? Only then does God open Balaam's eyes, and he sees that there is an angel with a huge sword standing in the road, blocking the way. Only then does Balaam understand that the donkey was not just being stubborn, but had actually saved his life. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha biflilut. For the sin we have committed against you by misjudging others. How often have we accused someone of being stubborn or acting in a way that we didn't understand, only to find out that they were acting in our better interest? How often have we withheld an apology from someone we've misjudged because of our own foolish pride or embarrassment? Al chet shechatanu. Al chet shechatanu. For all these sins. I'd like to share a prayer with you that I think speaks right to this issue in a very direct and powerful way. Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, help us to remember that the jerk who cut us off in traffic last night just might be a single mother who worked 9 hours that day and who is now rushing home to cook dinner, help with the homework, do the laundry, and spend a few precious moments with her children. Help us to remember that the pierced, tattooed, disinterested young man who couldn't make change correctly at the register today is a worried 19-year-old student who is preoccupied whether he passed his final exams and with his fear of not getting a student loan for the next semester. Remind us, dear God, that the scary-looking man begging for money in the same spot every day is a slave to addictions that we can only imagine in our worst nightmares. Help us to realize that the old couple walking slowly through the store aisles, blocking our shopping cart, is savoring this moment because they know that based on the biopsy report she got back yesterday, this may well be the last time they will go shopping together. Help us to realize that the ambulance that is rushing by for whom we have to slow down is carrying inside a person who would be heartened to know, even if he can't know, that we are saying a prayer for his well-being instead of cursing him for delaying our important trip by 15 or 20 seconds. Dear God, remind us each and every day that of all the gifts that you have given us, the capacity to make judgments is one of the most valuable, but also one of the most dangerous. We can use it to distinguish between good and evil, but so often we misuse it when we make judgments without knowing the facts or without the sympathy and the empathy that we ought to show towards other human beings. So let us not wait till Yom Kippur to atone for the sin of Pililut, the sin of hasty judgment. Instead, let the dialogue that's in today's portion between Balaam and the donkey stay with us. Balaam apologized to the angel. Evidently, he was still too vain and too stubborn to apologize to the donkey, which he really should have done. but let us not judge him. After all, he was probably pretty frightened and so perhaps not thinking clearly. But let us learn from him. Let us learn from his mistake to be careful how and whom we judge. Kenya Hiratzon. May it be God's will. Amen. I'd like to invite the Walter family to join us on the bima to help us take the Torah from the ark and to undress it. And we're going to have such a wonderful blessing tonight, getting to hear Emma chant from our Torah portion, and she's chanting the Matovu part. And as we continue, I invite all who can to please rise as our ark is open.
Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, le'amo Yisrael, bikedushato. Beit Yaakov l'chuvan elcha ba'or Adonai, O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of our God. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Well, this is not the first time that Emma is chanting Torah. The first time, of course, was 2 years ago at her bat mitzvah, which because of COVID was on Zoom, and the sanctuary was their living room. They had the Torah with them at home, and she did a beautiful job. I believe the second time was here, right, in the sanctuary, but it was during COVID still, and so nobody was in the room. It was all on Zoom, or not Zoom, on our live stream rather. So what a great simcha, an exciting, joyous, happy occasion it is that you're chanting Torah for us again with real people sitting in the room. So happy to hear you. And I believe also that it's your 15th birthday? Tomorrow. So also in honor of your 15th birthday. And thank you so much for saying yes and preparing this Torah portion to chant for us, which is from our Torah portion Balak, and she's going to be chanting the Matovu line. And we call the Walter family to the Aliyah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayisa Mishalo Vayomar Na'um Bil'am Beno Ve'or Hagever Shtum Ha'ayin Na'um Shomea Amer El Imre'el Asher Mahazeh Shaddai Yehezeh Nofel Uglui Einayim Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natan b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Yasher Koach.
And thank you, the whole family, for coming up and accepting the Aliyah. How nice it is to see everybody. Andrew and Mary and Isaac and Ian and Emma. And Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Don't go too far because you're going to help us dress the Torah. But in the presence of our Torah, first we like to say special blessings. I think this mask is rubbing on my knife, so I'll take that off. And especially for good health and healing for friends and family who need whatever strength that we can bring to them, especially with our visits and our calls, our meals, whatever we can do to bring a little strength, and our prayers for a refuah shlema of full and speedy healing. Those of you who are joining us from home, we invite you to please send us in the chat the names of your friends and loved ones whom you'd like to add to our list. And we are thinking especially this Shabbat of Casey Campbell-Shatman, Diane Dakin, Randy Watkins, Gabby Lopez-Smith, Rebecca Williams, Victor Altman, Samantha Porteous, John Kaplan, Barry Klein, Ellen Clore, Thomas Boggs, Carol Hogue, Rachel Frederick, Brooke Hall, Dan Fine, Maria Madrigal, Imelda Tamez, Cremilda Tamez, Wendy Obata, Maggie Ellis, and Mendel Lackman. And I invite those of you who are here to please add the names of friends and family.
Marian Messenger, Diane Gadagnolo, Andrew Singer, Ed Eisert, Arla Hesterman, Bob Gelb, Miles Oliver, Grace and Melissa McCoy, Roger Tiffin, Amanda Dennis, all those struggling, lost, and hopeless. The Misha Berach is on page 23.
May the source of strength Be'avoteinu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, we add to those names mentioned aloud those of us here who are in need of the same blessings for refuat hanefesh and refuat haguf, for healing of mind and body and spirit. Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim. Blessed are you, O God, who heals the sick.
Amen.
Amen.
Continue with the prayer for our country and the state of Israel.
Guardian of life and liberty, grant blessings to our country. Grant our leaders patience and wisdom. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may we never be lazy in the work of peace. Eternal God, grant blessings to the state of Israel. Protect your people, shelter them with peace, and grant them deliverance from the violence that surrounds them. May they live in harmony with one another and with their neighbors. May the bonds of faith and faith that unite the Jews of all lands be a source of strength and blessing to each of us and all the world. And let us say, Amen. Those who are able, please rise.
Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Ki lekachtav natati lachem Torati al ta'azovu. Eitz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomchecha me'ushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol nativotecha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Hadesh Hadesh Yameinu Hadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Page 25. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much, Emma, for chanting so beautifully, and for the whole family for joining us on the bima, taking the aliyah, helping to dress and undress the Torah and put it back. It's so nice to see the whole family together. Now that the kids are growing up, the boys are off to college. It's not that often that we get to see all of you gathered together, and it's so wonderful, and you must be so proud of all your kids. I remember coming to your house 15 years ago for a baby naming for Emma, which we did in your living room, and the boys were like 4 or 5 at the time. Wild. No, they were always good.
They were not.
What a pleasure to have seen them grow through the years, and we share in your nachas at their success. They're wonderful kids. They're wonderful young adults, I should say. At the end of each of our services, we take a moment to remember and to pay tribute to the memory, to honor the memory of our loved ones who are no longer with us physically, but whom we carry in our hearts. And so they continue to bless and to carry us. We invite those who are watching at home, if you have names to share with us of either loved ones who have died in recent days or in the month or this year, go ahead and send them to us in the chat. And we say, Yizkor Elohim, may God remember. Sylvia Schatzman, remembered with love by her daughter and son-in-law, Donna and Mark Smith, and grandchildren, Aaron and Rachel. She was a good mom, a strong lady who died a peaceful, thank God, a peaceful death. Donna and I were together in her last hour, and she was fully conscious and trying to speak with us. And the love was very present in that room. May her memory be a blessing and forever a source of strength. Is there anyone else here who has a recent death in the family, either the last week or the last month or in the last year? The following names are the names of loved ones who have a yortzeit, the anniversary of their death sometime in the week ahead. If I read the name of your loved one, won't you please stand? We remember with love Lynn Apple, Gertrude Corin, Arthur Kalo, Paula Marks, Sylvia Marks, David Statner, Shirley Bretcher, Randy Berkman, Ingrid Epstein, Rachel Nosanow, Mendel Koren, Gary Goldberg, Tim Grutman, Dorothy Stein, Guylaine Menoyer Messenger, Irving Smith, Lupu Katz, Lillian Giuliano, Albert Levy, Adrian Rose, Alfred Runge, Emmanuel Stein, Kathleen Tratner, Bernard Diamant, Esther Tabak, Gerhard Schoenfeld, Alvin Davidson, William Massover, Herbert Gutmann, Norman Weinstein, and Ralph Bukowski.
I'd like to add Joey Robinow, Herm Lewin, Aaliyah Deshay, Brock Blair, Gail Weiss, Betty Myers, Laura Lee Southern, and Joseph Tannenbaum.
And we hold in our hearts those who have died from COVID-19, all those who have died from senseless acts of gun violence, and the 6 million. So many who left no one to remember them. So we hold them in our hearts along with our own loved ones who have died as we now turn to page 26 and rise for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach ute v'amlich malchute, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lomei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berichu, la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom v'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to those who mourn and comfort to all the bereaved. And let us say, amen. You may be seated.
Thank you again to the Walter family for the Aliyah and dressing the Torah and Emma's beautiful chanting. We're so happy to have you here tonight with us. And happy birthday to Arnie Roth and Kama Deshay this week and all the rest that are enjoying a birthday celebration.
Emma Walter.
And Emma, of course. Thank you, Ari, for keeping us connected to our community on the live stream. This Sunday, we're having a jewelry home show fundraiser for Temple Israel with creations by Ruth Rakoski, sitting right here. Yay, Ruth. And in fact, I'm wearing one right now. But there are some postcards out there if you want to invite friends to come. It's at our home. We're not posting our address on social media, so just let people know where we live.
We're going to be outside in the yard, in the backyard.
Right. And 30% of all the sales goes to Temple Israel. So come and enjoy some beautiful jewelry, and let's do a nice fundraiser for Temple.
Every piece of Ruth's jewelry is handmade, a one-of-a-kind work of art. They're truly beautiful.
They are. Wish your friends a sweet new year by sending them a gift of honey this Rosh Hashanah. I know it sounds far away, but it really isn't. And if you want to, the proceeds benefit Temple Israel and the Organization for Educational Resources and Technological Training. That's a mouthful. But order by August 1st to enjoy free shipping. And I know that personally it's always nice when we get these little jars of honey and a note from a family who's thought of us this year. So it's something you can do as a thoughtful gift. Shabbat Barbecue is back, and it's next week. We have a 6 o'clock service that we start with. We will be live streaming that service. It will be abbreviated, lots of music, and then we will go into our social hall and outside where the barbecue is. Please bring your own main entree to barbecue and bring a side dish to share, or a dessert or a salad. And we'll supply the grill, the utensils, plates, napkins, etc. It's a nice communal evening to schmooze, to eat, and enjoy Shabbat evening together.
Might I suggest that those of you joining us from home perhaps do barbecue at home?
There you go. But we will be doing the service at 6, and then we'll go offline after that. And just so you know, the temple office itself is closed for the next, I guess it's 2 weeks until August 3rd. It reopens. So you can still send your mail. Jay is here. We'll be receiving that, but Rita and Karma are both out of the office until the 3rd. Israeli dance will continue, though. We'll be here dancing in the social hall, and Shabbat service continue also. And that's all I have, I think, except for that our closing song is Od Yavo. So let's sing together. Ojavo.
What am I doing?
I don't know.
Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Salam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. 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 Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. Salam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam. Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. 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 Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam. Salam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kulam. Why don't we rise and stand together with our loved ones, those who we can be near, as we join together in Shabbat Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen.
L'chaim.
Chaim. And we have a home-baked challah by Steve this evening. Thank you so much,
Yummy.
Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
So, I smell cinnamon.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Let's say a Shabbat Shalom on the count of 3 to everyone joining us from home. Achat Shtayim Shalosh.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have
Mwah.
a good Shabbat and a wonderful and safe weekend. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone here. Let's join together at Oneg.